So good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out and supporting this essential, more than ever essential practice of Fusatsu, which is our way of connecting with all of the harm that is being done and that has been done by us individually and by us collectively throughout all space and all time, which is a really awesome thing to do. So thank you for upholding that. Another way of putting it that occurred to me as I was thinking about this talk was what we're doing is we're saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. And this I that says I'm sorry is everything. Everything is this I that is saying I'm sorry for everything. Everything apologizes to everything, for everything. So this is the first of two Fusatsu talks that I would like to give, looking at the lens, the precepts through the lens of the ancestors. So there'll be a different ancestor in each talk. And tonight, the ancestor I'll be working with is Maezumi Roshi, who you can see on this altar. This is our ancestor altar, where we see on the left Maezumi and his first descendant, Bernie Glassman, or Tetsugen as he was called. Taizan Maezumi Roshi was born one day before my mother. And he died at 64, quite prematurely. I am at this point 42 days older than Maezumi was when he died. So I feel a bit of a karmic connection, but of course it's far from just karmic. Because without Maezumi, I would not be here. And you would not be here. And when I say you would not be here, I mean you would not be here to apologize for everything throughout all space and time. And it might seem to us as if being on the ancestor altar in this way, he's deceased. But he is in fact very much alive. He is teaching us now. He is bowing with us now. He is upholding the precepts and breaking the precepts now with us. Specifically for this talk's purpose, the fifth precept, but also the first and the eighth might be invoked. So in 1983, in case you don't know, Maezumi Roshi was revealed to have been an alcoholic. And it was also revealed that he had been having sex with his female students. And this revelation nearly destroyed the Zen Center of Los Angeles, which is the parent temple, perhaps one could say, of this institution. Many people, that is a residential center where many people live and lived, and many of them left, disillusioned and angry at this news. And it really harmed the institution. And it would be very tempting for me to sit here and fulminate at the moral problem that Maezumi Roshi's transgressions presents to us and be really righteous about this and that and the other. But the point of the precepts is to look at them intimately in the context of our own lives as expressions of everything, everywhere. So I'll get to how my life is intimately connected to Maezumi's transgressions in a moment. But 1983 was an interesting year because that very same year, Richard Baker, the heir to Shunryu Suzuki of San Francisco Zen Center, was also revealed to have been having sex with his female students. And the wife of a donor, for good measure. And there have been many examples, unfortunately, among our teaching constellations with this problem. So there's Joshu Sasaki, Dainan Katagiri, Edo Shimano, and a Maezumi heir, actually more than one, but let's not get carried away with them all, Genpo Merzel. Maezumi, when it was revealed that he had these problems, went and got treatment. He took a leave of absence and he was treated in a residential facility. And then he returned to the Zen Center of Los Angeles and soldiered through 12 years, atoning. Can you imagine what it was like to be him and to go back and face what he had done every day for 12 years? Not just theoretical, right in the face. Say what you will about his transgressions. That took balls. That is saying, I'm sorry. That is the embodiment of the precepts. And then, 12 years after he had been revealed to have these problems, most of these troubles were, let's say, repaired over time. In the Zen Center of Los Angeles, life had returned to some semblance of normality with lots of ethics codes and other innovations. And then he went to Japan, and on the very day that he designated Bernie Glassman to be his heir, he, despite having been apparently dry for 12 years, he got very drunk. And he went into a bath and he drowned in his bath. His brothers lied about it, all of them priests. So the story was that he had a heart attack in his sleep. And that was the story that they went with when he was memorialized at many ceremonies. They went with that story. And it was only when his wife, I believe, or widow, applied for life insurance that the death certificate had to be produced, and that was what told them what really had happened, that he had drowned. And we have to ask ourselves, how is this possible? This giant of the Dharma, flawed as he was, with 12 successors, he gave ordination to 68 priests, including our own Enkyo Roshi, and the precepts to over 500. How could he lose his life in this way? And it might seem rather off topic, but there's a passage in Octavio Paz's Labyrinth of Solitude that I would like to read in reference to this. Death is a mirror which reflects the vain gesticulations of the living. The whole motley confusion of acts, omissions, regrets, and hopes, which is the life of each one of us, finds in death not meaning or explanation, but an end. Death defines life. Our deaths illuminate our lives. If our deaths lack meaning, our lives also lacked it. If we do not die as we lived, it is because the life we lived was not really ours. It did not belong to us, just as the bad death that kills us does not belong to us. Tell me how you die, and I will tell you who you are. So this part of the passage, the life we lived was not really ours, it did not belong to us, could not have been more true of Maezumi, who gave his life to teach his students. He was always on the job, always, unstinting, relentless, teaching. Countless thousands of people benefited from his work. And again, we would not be here were it not for him. His life really did not belong to him. For 40 years that he was in this country teaching, it was not his life. It was the life of everyone he touched, and is touching, and will touch. But we have to ask, what was the pain that he felt so intensely that he drank himself to death? What was it that was so excruciating that he had to drink himself into oblivion? Was his death, in fact, a suicide? No accounts of his death attribute it to suicide, but in effect it was a suicide. He expressed tremendous guilt and remorse over what he had done, again and again, to everyone who would listen, in his talks, private and public. And that, perhaps together with the strain of teaching for 40 years, withholding communities for 40 years, was just too much. He was a human being. Here's an interesting story out of a collection that I've got of Maezumi Roshi anecdotes. He was sitting on the front porch of the Zen Center of Los Angeles one evening with one of his students, apparently Genpo Merzel, the sex abuser I spoke of earlier, when a disheveled, inebriated, and extremely depressed-looking man staggered up to them. "What's it like," the man slurred, "to be enlightened?" Just imagine, wino comes up to Maezumi and says that. Maezumi looked at the man quietly and said, "Very depressing." I think this goes a long way to explaining his death. And then there's another anecdote in the same collection. He was asked publicly whom he would be if he could go back in time to any place, any time. Who would he be? And he replied, nowhere and nobody. I don't know that nihilism is really what it's about, but I think that's a window into Maezumi as well. So all of this is leading up to the precept I'd like to talk about tonight, which is the fifth precept, not giving or taking drugs. And this is a precept that I've never really paid attention to for my own self because I don't drink or take drugs. Supposedly. So this is where the precepts become really important and interesting and vital, is when it's not obvious what the connection is and you have to actually live that connection and look carefully to see it. So the drug that I like is my opinions. I really, really like that drug. And the intoxication of my judgments. I love to get drunk. on my judgments, based on my opinions, I am always on a natural high. Walking the streets of New York, it's nonstop judging, nonstop critiques. Why is it like that? What the hell does he think he's doing? And so on. I'm mainlining this stuff constantly. So I am a drunk. I am an addict. I mean, I can laugh about it, but it's serious business. Guzzling the brew that I don't delude myself. Because I don't drink, I don't take drugs. Ridiculous. I delude myself constantly. This I that thinks it knows, that has the answers, that has the standards by which everything should be judged, including Maezumi. You should hear the judgments I had about him when I started thinking about this talk. What a journey it's been. So the fifth grade precept, not giving or taking drugs. We have three versions of this precept, or rather one version and two commentaries. Bodhidharma, our first Zen ancestor in China, had this to say: self-nature is subtle and mysterious. In the realm of the intrinsically pure Dharma, not giving rise to delusions is called the precept of not giving or taking drugs. And not giving rise to delusions includes not giving rise to the delusion that you will not give rise to delusions. You will give rise to delusions. Do not be deluded about that. So that's where I am. I'm not giving rise to the delusion that I won't do that. And maybe occasionally, very occasionally, 1 minute out of 10,000, I actually don't give rise to a delusion. But it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? It sounds so simple, not giving rise to delusions. So tell me something I don't know, Bodhidharma. Thanks. Then we have Dogen. Similarly, for him, straightforward. Drugs are not brought in yet. Don't let them invade. That is the great light. Drugs are not brought in yet. I mean, it's true, right? Originally, we have no drugs. We have no opinions. We have no standards, no judgments, no ranking, no comparing, no good, better, best crap. So he's right. But our culture teaches us that this is the way to live. So we're really very anti-cultural here with this. We're swimming against a tremendous tide of judgments, ranking and comparing. But we can connect through our zazen, through our bowing, through our chanting, with the time and place, which is now, right now, when drugs are not brought in yet. And then we have the Zen peacemaker's expression, cultivating a mind that sees clearly. This is the precept of not being ignorant. I like this one the best. A mind that sees clearly is a mind that recognizes its own ignorance. Could there not be a more fundamental expression of non-delusion than to recognize one's own ignorance? And that is atonement. Right there, that recognition, that clarity. So, in an interview in 1998, our Enkyo Roshi said about Maezumi, as the years pass after Maezumi Roshi's death, this emerges as his great teaching for me. A cup is more valuable chipped. He was broken. I am broken. And when we can see that we are all chipped and broken, we begin to value our life as an expression of the teaching that we are truly perfect and complete, just as we are. How is it possible that we're chipped and broken and truly perfect That's something to work with, isn't it? Hard to believe that I'm perfect. I don't believe it. I remember the first time I was at Village Zendo and I heard that, you're perfect, complete, just as you are. And I was like, what? I don't think so. What are you talking about? And I still have that feeling, often. But it is, in fact, the case. Because what do we mean by perfection? What do we mean by complete? What perfects us? Everything, everywhere is us. Everything everywhere completes us. Everything everywhere expresses us. Now, through this ritual action, we connect with and apologize to everything everywhere. And we express the perfection and completion that is our lives right now, individually and collectively. So don't make my mistake and complacently absolve yourself of faults. Look at the precepts in their most expansive dimension and understand that they touch you no matter what you think about what you do and what you don't do. Because believe me, you're doing it. Whether you recognize it or not, one way or another, you're doing it. So look carefully. And don't make my mistake and dismiss your own perfection and completion. Profit by my bad example. Instead, focus on the fact that you have no idea what perfection or completion are, and live that question. Every moment, live the question of what is the perfection that I am a part of, that expresses me, that I express. And we can joyfully live the precepts. We can be joyful about these guidelines that are supporting us in our interactions with all those around us and not around us, in a world that is bent more and more seemingly every day on doing harm to itself. We can live and joyfully express the precepts. So I'm going to conclude with a warning. Bokushu may be highly addictive. Keep out of reach of small children. In case of accidental overdose, flush eyes with water, induce vomiting, and contact a poison control center immediately. Thank you.